Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. In this video, I'm going to be talking about postpartum depression. Um, Men, you can stay and listen as well. Some of you are married, or you may get married, or you may be dealing with a young woman, your daughter. It doesn't matter. This may be something that you may be affected by as well at some point in your life. But for women, I want you to pay attention. This video is by request. And I think it's a really good request because there are things that people just don't understand, things that are happening to them, and they have no real explanation for them. Everything is given a medical diagnosis in this day and age because people do not want to deal with the spiritual aspects of things. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be dealing with the spiritual aspect of things because postpartum depression is a very real situation that women deal with. During your monthly cycle, you experience certain things as a woman. Some of you don't, some of you do. For those of you who do, I'm definitely talking to you, okay? I know that I have. Coming up, I used to have some really rough times during my monthly cycle. Okay, I'm actually leading up to it. Let's just put it that way. Leading up to it, they call it premenstrual syndrome. In the Bible, it even references what women go through. It says, "And menstruous women shall bring forth monsters." Okay, there's really something for the scripture to refer to it as something because women go through this emotional thing, extreme emotional thing leading up to their cycle. And then some, once their cycle starts, they go through an additional emotional thing because of certain things that come along with that cycle. For some, you've never had the cramps, and some of you have. I know women who've never experienced the cramping that happens to your body during your cycle. Okay, some of you have, and it's been very severe. And I know for me, I've experienced, having that issue. But I wanted to talk about the postpartum depression because that is something that happens. It can happen during, and it can. Okay, it's not called postpartum. Okay, when it's during the pregnancy, you can go through a depression, but after the baby is delivered, you can go through a postpartum depression. And some women have experienced this, some very severely, some minor. And so I want to talk about what this actually is from a spiritual standpoint because, again, the world is going to give you a medical diagnosis for this. They're going to give you a medical terminology to make you think that there's nothing spiritual going on when actually it is. When a woman gets to the point where, let's just say you have women who have wanted to take their own lives after experiencing postpartum depression. So then you know that this is something beyond what is natural. You can't just think that this is a natural occurrence. There is something very spiritual going on. Is a mental thing first, where you're tormented. Some women are tormented with thoughts, wondering if they're going to make it through the pregnancy in some cases, and after you've delivered the baby, wondering if something is going to happen to the baby. Just all kinds of thoughts come flooding in. And when you don't know what to do with those thoughts or the source of those thoughts or why they're even there, then if you act upon these things, it can be a very permanent decision to a very temporary thing that you're going through because you don't know what to do with the thoughts. Months ago, it may have even been last year, I talked about arresting your thoughts because when you don't learn how to arrest your thoughts can take over. Bad thoughts can take over and cause you to do things that you will regret. And so women who go through the monthly thing or the during your pregnancy depression, after the pregnancy depression, when you go through these things, those can be very overwhelming times for you. I can remember being pregnant with some of my children because I didn't get it with all of my children. But I had the during the pregnancy issues and the after pregnancy issues. During the pregnancy, you're just having all types of fears. For me, Okay. I had all kinds of fears that came over me for various reasons, wondering if I was going to survive the delivery, wondering if the baby was going to survive. And these thoughts were tormenting thoughts. Listening to me, if you're not a woman who has experienced this, or if you're a man who has no idea that women go through these things, you're like, okay, just stop thinking about it. It's not that easy when you're going through those moments. And in retrospect, I now know and realize that this was the enemy, Hashatan, attacking the mind, causing these tormenting thoughts because I didn't arrest the thoughts. When you don't bring your thoughts into captivity, the scripture tells you, it says that we should bring into captivity every thought into obedience to the Most High. When you bring that thought into captivity, or you arrest your thought, then that means you are taking control. You let, when the thought enters in, you don't allow it to take over your mind. You don't sit there and ponder and meditate on this negative thing that is causing depression in your mind or in your life. You don't allow that thought to just take over. Some people allow thoughts to take over where they just sit there and they ponder and they think, and it's a form of meditation. You're meditating on something that is negative, and it will negatively affect you. And so that's what a lot of women go through, and they don't know that their mind is under attack. And so therefore they will sit there in this depression. Whatever thought enters in, you just sit there and you think and you ponder. Many times you're in a place, especially in the latter part of your pregnancy, you're in a place where you're ready for the child to be delivered. You're tired physically, emotionally. Your body is, experiencing all kinds of changes. And so you're not in a position to really do a whole lot. For some women, they stay active during their pregnancy. Some of us, we get really big, okay? But whatever your situation may be, whether you're one of those who stay active, because just because you're active doesn't mean that you can't experience this too. But a number of different things can just come flooding into your mind. And when you don't discard those thoughts and you allow them to just stay in your mind and you ponder and meditate on them, you will be, in some cases, forced to act on them because the thought takes over. And this is why some women do very drastic things that they later on regret. Okay. I've heard so many different stories. I remember there was a story of a woman who moved to America from China with her husband. I believe his job brought him over here. And it was a culture shock for her. She didn't know the language. She knew nothing about America. This was a devastating move for her. And getting pregnant didn't help things, right? So she's pregnant. She's going through this extreme depression. And her husband doesn't realize how extreme it is or how extreme it has gotten. So he doesn't know what to do to help his wife. And so during this time, as he's going to work and coming home, things are just going from bad to worse. But he's thinking, oh, it'll blow over. Well, it didn't blow over. After she had her child, what this woman ended up doing, and this happened many years ago, I'm thinking somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago, because we were still living in Michigan at the time. But this woman, after she had her child, she drowned her newborn baby in a little small puddle of water somewhere, or it could have been a pond on their property. But anyway, she drowned her newborn baby, and it was so devastating to her husband and herself. They immediately knew something was going on. In this particular case, they realized it was the culture shock of an Asian woman coming to America. She's at home all day by herself while her husband works. And so in this case, they got help for her because they realized this wasn't a woman who just maliciously took the life of her child. They realized that postpartum depression had taken over. Okay. And so that was a very sad example of how bad postpartum depression can get when you don't realize that it is the enemy attacking your mind, literally. Okay, this is why it's very important that you bring into captivity every thought. You have to arrest thoughts. You can't ponder on those negative things. Whatever negative thought you are having or experiencing, you can't ponder on it. That is a form of meditation. If the thought is telling you something awful is going to happen to you or your child, and you're meditating on that, is going to cause not just depression, but stress. Okay, so the stress alone can make you sick, can make your baby sick, right? And if it's a case where you've already delivered the child, and the child's crying, or any little thing that happens to the child, the child being hungry, or you're thinking the child is cold all the time. In my case, one thing that I used to think, I used to be tormented by the thought of SIDS, okay? Sudden infant death syndrome. I used to be just tormented by that thought. So I would have the baby's bassinets right by my bed, okay? And constantly throughout the night, I'm just getting up, reaching over to make sure they're still breathing. That was a very tormenting thought for me, because I do know of people who have lost their children to SIDS, right? And so when you think of these things, these thoughts begin to torment you. You can't experience peace and shalom because these thoughts take over. And so what you have got to do, you've got to create an environment for yourself that won't allow these negative thoughts, okay? Create an atmosphere for yourself that is going to help to get rid of those thoughts. Meditating in the Word of Yah, listening to beautiful, calm, peaceful music. Some of the last births I had. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to talk about the last birth I had with my child, who is now 6 years old. With her, when it was time to deliver her, I was doing a pool birth, okay, a birthing pool. So we had candles in the background. We had very soft music playing, okay. The atmosphere was very calm. It was late in the evening, so most of the children were already asleep, except one of my oldest daughters, Sophia. She was there to help with the delivery. My mom was there as well, and of course my husband was there. And so we created an environment in the room that was very calm, very quiet, very peaceful, soft music playing. So this helped me to relax. Now, I still had some fear. I'm just going to be honest with you, because I had her at an older age. And so, and I had some experiences before as well that weren't very positive. And so whenever you're going into childbirth, for some women, it is frightening, okay? Just like the sister who requested that I do this video, she wants prayer. And we pray that the Most High will give her a peaceful, safe, and just joyous birth, okay? But there's a fear that comes on some women, especially African American women, because of things that have happened to us in the past. And so for me, I had that fear. This was my last child, and I was really big, okay? Didn't know what to expect. She was a little bit overdue. And so someone said that if I walk up and down the stairs a lot, and if I take some cayenne peppers or something like that, that this just might induce my labor. And they were absolutely right. It worked. Okay. I walked up and down at our previous home. I walked up and down the stairs, I would say more than 20 times. And our stairs were really long. We had the house was tall, so the flight of stairs was really, really long. And so I did that, and I took the cayenne pepper, and what ended up happening is it actually, my husband just walked in, but he just backed out quietly. But what ended up happening is that definitely induced my labor. And my thinking afterward was the fact that this child, experiencing all of this hot cayenne in my system, that baby was like, I got to come up out of here. She done put too much of the stuff in here, you know. I think I had some greens with hot sauce on it and some cayenne peppers, and it definitely worked. But during the course of the delivery, it also caused a little bit more pain than um, my last two births prior to that. And so, of course, I was afraid. I was already really big doing a home birth. And with all of that, it just caused a little more stress as I'm having delivery. But the music and the atmosphere being calmed down really helped big time. It helped out big time. So when it was time for the baby to come out, and my husband said, "There's the head." Okay, there's the head. I just kind of calmed down and said, "It's just about to be over." You see, it was just about to be over. And so that helped me to get through things a lot better and a lot easier. And of course, after I had the baby, I didn't go through any postpartum depression at all. But I remember with this particular child, finding out I was pregnant with her, I actually went into depression right away. This was my 10th child. I was older. I have adult children now, and so they are spread out. And so I'm saying to myself, man, I'm really kind of too old to be having children, but the Most High does what he wants, right? You know? And I really wasn't too old, but I was just feeling that way. I was feeling tired because I thought I was done. And so when I found out I was pregnant with this child, I went into depression right away. I remember I set my husband down in the office and I said, "Baby," and I started crying right away. I started crying. And I told him I was pregnant again, and he felt so sorry for me because you're not supposed to be sad when you're pregnant. But because I was older, and you go through these moments of fear, and you go through these traumatic experiences, in which I did have some for some of my births. It was one of those where I'm like, okay, Abby, have mercy on me type thing. And so I understand a woman who goes through this. I totally get it. But we've got to learn how to discard those thoughts, right? We've got to learn how to discard, because you don't want to experience depression from something that is supposed to be so wonderful. Another thing I remember during that last pregnancy, I was out in the garden, and there was something that was on the ground that shouldn't have been there. And I remember almost tripping over it and falling. And I was probably around 8 months pregnant. So I was pretty far along, pretty big. And I remember going into depression just over that. I said to myself, man, what would have happened if I had fallen, right? And so many different things. You have to be careful when you're pregnant, right? So many different things can cloud your mind when you are pregnant, or after you deliver the baby. So many thoughts. But we as women have got to learn how to bring our thoughts into captivity. Arrest those thoughts. Don't let them run you. Don't let them rule you. Don't meditate on negative things that could affect your life, your child's life, that can cause you to make decisions that you will regret. But learn how to meditate. Be peaceful. Be calm. Pray. Seek the Most High. Don't allow the enemy to implant a thought that you will in turn ponder on, that can cause you to become sick. Okay? I hope that this video helps the sister who requested it, and anyone else who may be pregnant or become pregnant and see this at a later date. I hope that this video helps. Don't allow yourself to ponder on or meditate on negativity, because it is not good for you, nor is it good for the baby. I want to say that I love you all, sisters. Thank you for the video request to the sister who did request it. This was an excellent thing to speak on. I've talked about issues of pregnancy before. I've talked about black women and different things that we experience in this country, in the land of our captivity, but not specifically just postpartum depression. So this was a great request. I'm glad I was able to do this, and I hope that it is a baraka or a blessing to someone who may have needed to hear this information. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, share and like this video, and with that I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.